recording. And there we go. Hello and welcome to Concert Pipeline. That's Jens Schippel.
And that is Steve Jones.
And Jens, today on the program, we have not one, but two guests to join us. Really excited about this one. We have a packed show for you.
Looking forward to it. Steve, bring it on. What do we got?
Okay, so first up, we're going to have a band called Mashville. I'm going to be speaking to Graham Loft.
Wait, Mashville?
Yeah. Mashville, like Nashville with an M.
With an M. Okay, Mashville.
Yes, but they're from England. So we're going to actually we've been taking trips over the pond, a lot recently, and we have another artist in a couple of weeks that we'll be talking to, also from England, who I've interviewed before, actually. So we don't need to worry about that right now.
Like Bangers in Mashville.
They could. That could be part of where that name came from. That's pretty clever. I like where you went there.
I made that connection as soon as you said England. I thought, oh, Bangers and Mash. So,
I didn't make that connection before, so I like where your mind is, and we will roll with it.
That's why you got me on this show, so I can think creatively.
And then, Jens, for our second interview, which we'll talk about a little bit later, we have Scroat. His real name is Angelo Bundini, but I had a chance to interview him for the second time. We interviewed him 5 years ago at my favorite concert. I think a concert you really enjoyed as well, the Celebrating David Bowie show that happened at the Bill Graham. It wasn't Bill Graham Civic, no, it was the Regency Ballroom in San Francisco.
Yes, right off of Van Ness, or right on Van Ness, I think, right?
Yes, and
fantastic show.
We have exciting news about that. They are going to be airing the show in audio form, and we'll tell you more about that after the first interview. Right now, before we get into both interviews, Jens, I do have a short story to tell you. This will have already happened, I believe, by the time this airs. But I promoted this briefly on the last episode. A couple of classic rock.
Wait. You're sharing a story of something that hasn't happened yet, but will happen by the time.
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
How do you know what the story is if it hasn't happened yet?
Because the story leading up to it is what's hilarious. So
all right.
that is the entertaining. It is worth talking about on the show. That the Appice brothers, Carmine and and Vinny Appice, they're classic rock drummers. I interviewed them almost a year ago, probably one of my first COVID video interviews back in May of last year. They both were in classic rock bands. One played with Dio, the other played in Ozzy's band, played in Heaven and Hell and that sort of thing. Another classic rock bands, been around forever, really cool guys. They reached out to me to be on their show Hanging and Banging with Carmine and Vinny, which is a YouTube show that they've been doing since COVID hit. And I said, okay, sure, and then over the weekend, I was like, I'm going to watch their most recent episode, just so I'm caught up on what they've been talking about, get a couple of tidbits to call out to, that sort of thing. And I watched, the whole hour show. And then in the last hour, this is what I hear, and I'm going to play the audio right now. Okay.
On his jacket.
Okay.
Come on! Okay. Thank you guys for coming. We had a good time. Thank you guys. Yeah. Right on next week. Everybody. Who's on next week? I don't remember. I know who's on next week. We got it's a radio show. Oh, that's next week. We got Steve Jones used to play with the Sex Pistols, who's on KLOS. Yeah. And we got Ken Dashow from Q104 in New York.
Okay.
You know what, Steve? I'm really just embarrassed to say this. I've known you for at least 10 years now. I didn't know you were the same Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols. I could have put two and two together, but I'm just, I'm that out of it. I didn't realize.
I've maintained my youth quite well, I'll say. I dedicated, I contributed all to running and getting on the Peloton every day, right? So
there we go.
So I saw that and after I picked up my job off before, because I had an inkling of a feeling that that might be, just when I started at the beginning of watching the show, I was like, this is interesting. I wonder if, because they have a lot of classic rock people and people that are, let's just say, not in my generation, on their show. And I was like, that would be weird. I wonder if, they think I'm Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols, which I'm obviously aware that one of the founding members of the Sex Pistols is Steve Jones, and have been, but I've never been directly confused with him. I've been compared, sort of thing. And we actually do similar things now. He has a radio show called Jonesy's Jukebox, and I guess he's on KIOI or something. I don't know, but he interviews bands and stuff too. So I can see where the mistake happens. So I text Carmine and I was like, hey, I think you got me confused with Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols. It happens all the time. No. And he's like, okay. And then so he, then there's a big text exchange, which I won't bore you with. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they decided to keep me on the program. And
nice.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's going to be happening. And so again, I'm not in the same. There's a couple of other radio DJs who are going to be on also at the same time. Hopefully, they'll drive the show.
Right. Well, you know what? They know you though, right? I mean, it's not just they got the wrong Steve Jones. They know you from before.
I think they remembered me, and they probably went back and looked at what they had done with me. But yeah, so I don't know. It'll be an interesting experience. I have a couple of stories I can share with classic rockers that I've interviewed, interesting times, on the show. So we'll see how it goes, but in a couple of weeks I'll report back, I think. So.
Yeah, I got a couple questions here. Stuff like this happens. You got to have questions, right?
Yeah.
One question is, did Steve, quote, from the Sex Pistols, unquote, Jones, watch that same clip that you just played for us and was like, I know nothing about this?
They never I'm sure he didn't, and I'm guessing they don't have his number, but thought they did, so because they were emailing and texting with me,
Right.
But I didn't mislead myself as anything. I was like, I'm Steve Jones from Concert Pipeline. That's who I am, right? So
right. Yeah, and then the other thing is, I think to avoid future confusion, Steve, quote, from Concert Pipeline, unquote, Jones, and Steve, quote, from the Sex Pistols, unquote, Jones, need to get together and add those little inserts, as their.
Okay, well, we'll get together. We'll have Steve, unquote, Jones from the Sex Pistols on the program, and I will tell you, I tried to, when the Sex Pistols were touring, probably one of their last tours, like 15 years ago when I was doing the show. I remember they were playing at the Warfield or something, and I tried to get an interview with Steve Jones. Then I didn't get a reply, but I thought that would have been cool.
Would have been totally cool.
Didn't happen.
Oh well.
But Jens, what is happening, because we got to roll on, we have lots of program, is an interview with Mashville, and I'm excited about this. We had a really great chat, Graham and I, and he played a song for the podcast as well. So so it was really enjoyable, and we're going to get into that now.
That's fantastic.
All right, this one, I'll give you a couple of verses and a chorus of this one. It's called this one's called Katie. So this hopefully be on the new one. So. Candlelight finds me weaving a meaning through a metaphor. Stoplight roses on my windowsill, photographs across the floor, bloodshot eyes as the door slams closed on something I should never have said. Is Katie coming back over the airwaves again? Is she living out a movie scene? if it seems like I'm looking lost with love, I can swear it isn't true. But I don't know where to find what's left to prove. And we can't keep our feet upon this shaky ground where no one wants to dance. It's just a game, they call it circumstance. It's just a game, they call it circumstance. Morning comes to find the black crows pecking at my window pane, sirens screaming, and the neon blue is lighting up the sad, sad rain. Bloodshot eyes as the door slams closed. Something I should never have seen. Is Katie coming back over the airwaves again? Is she living out a movie scene? And if it seems like I'm looking lost with love, I can swear it isn't true. But I don't know where to find what's left to prove. I can warn you about the dog. And we can't keep our feet upon this shaky ground where no one wants to dance. It's just a game, they call it circumstance. It's just a game, they call it circumstance.
Hey, Graham, how you doing?
Yeah, good, good. How you doing? All right?
I'm doing all right. Yes, early here in California, but it's good into the afternoon where you are, right? So
yeah, middle afternoon. Yeah. So I was wondering where you were actually. So you're West Coast, yeah?
yeah, I'm in Napa, California. So
okay, cool. So
yeah.
what sort of time is it? What, about 7, 8 in the morning, or
six actually?
Okay.
But you're like that
good.
is, or yeah, but it's okay. So I'm I'm an early riser as it is, usually up and on the Peloton at like 5:30 in the morning, and and of course got kids, so that doesn't help, but
yeah, exactly. You get used to it after a while, don't you? Yeah.
you do. So no worries on that front.
For getting you up so early.
and you're good anyway. After this, I'm getting ready to take them on a road trip, so to Lake Tahoe. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, so it should be good. But yeah, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. So I want to start off asking you kind of how are things for you? How have they been for the last year, and how has this affected you out there in England?
Well, much like everyone else, it's been a sort of mad process for the last 12 months, really. Yeah, I don't know what more to say. That you've probably, of all your guests, you've probably had a similar kind of reaction, really. I mean, it feels, the fact that we came out of a lockdown in the summer and then we went back into one just feels like it's really stretched the whole process out. I mean, we were, as a family, we were fortunate enough, we managed to get away down to the southwest for a couple of weeks back in kind of July, August time. Which kind of helped break the mold, really, because I've been working from home pretty much, for 12 months, like most people that can work from home. So I feel fortunate from that perspective, that still able to kind of pay the bills and keep the wolf from the door, as it were. So, but yeah, just frustrating, obviously, but you end up just being thankful that you can look after your family, and hopefully we're about a week away from our glorious leader kind of giving us an update of a route out of it. So I think on the 22nd he announces a road path out of this lockdown. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get some idea of how things in the next couple of months will get back to some sort of normality, really.
Yeah. So I mean, has it been really challenging because of the new strain of the virus? Like, what did that do on the community?
Yeah, there was so around about just before Christmas time, there was all the talk in this country about relaxing some of the lockdown measures so that people could have a Christmas and families could get together and see each other in households. And then this new strain kind of, well, I don't think people were made aware of this new strain until January time, just after Christmas. But I was talking to a couple of people in the medical side of things that I think it was apparent come sort of October, November time, there was a new strain. But we wasn't made aware of it until kind of January, and then it just kind of, the announcement came on the 4th of Jan that you know, we're back into lockdown, and it was just, yeah, here we go again type thing. So yeah, this new, well, in the county that I'm from, Kent, that's where the variant kind of came from apparently. So it's the Kent strain that's gone viral. So, and the South African one, I lose count.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. But compared to you guys, like it's minimal, isn't it? I mean, you know, we've I think the UK are kind of like have the fifth highest death toll, unfortunately. But you guys,
it's been bad. Yeah, it's been bad. No one, you know, so many people don't take it seriously, and it gets to be a political thing, right? Which, you know, is not what this is, right? So I don't know. I'm just being as safe as I can, and you know, and just waiting, you know, believing that there will be a day that this will be over, you know, and that I won't have to do the distance learning with the kids anymore, and that sort of thing, right? So have you had to do that? Like, I don't know how old your kids are, but
yeah, I've got 3 teenagers now, so they're all been working from home. So they're on half term this week. So they've got a break from the whole distance learning, but we've been really lucky. They're good lads, and they get on with it. And my eldest is 17 now, so he's self-sufficient really on that side of it. My wife's a key worker. She goes into work at a preschool, and yeah, so we kind of share the homeschooling, and my work have thankfully been really flexible with that type of thing. So we've been able to juggle things. So
yeah, that's a good thing. A lot of employers are, you know, being creative and understanding towards their employees having to deal with everything, right? That's not expected, right? So
yeah, and I think they're getting a lot of productivity out of staff as well, because I think people are able to go on out of hours, and they probably are making time up out of hours. So I think that in a funny way, everyone benefits, but yeah, we need things to get back to normal, I think.
I agree. Yeah. So let's go back to when you were a kid. Like, what sort of music did you listen to? What did your parents have on in the house?
Well, I mean, my parents, I didn't really start getting massively into music till I was about 14, 15. I think my brother was first off, you know, into music in a big way, and it took me a little bit longer. My parents, my dad's always been a big Paul Simon fan, early Elton John, which I picked up on, yeah, Springsteen, that type of thing. I mean, they got varied tastes, you know, but I took the good stuff, tried to take the good stuff and listen to, you know, what I was into at that age. But it was probably from 14, 15 onwards that I really started to yeah, be moved by music, and didn't really start playing and performing it until probably much later, sort of 18, 19. So I did a lot of listening for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and you mentioned Springsteen. You're a big Springsteen fan, right?
Yeah. I think the whole band is really, but particularly myself and Baron, who founded the band together. We're big fans. Yeah, I've seen him live only 2 or 3 times, but I guess his albums were the first ones that really kind of got me into the thought of writing songs. You know, things like Ghost of Tom Joad and that type of thing.
Yeah, so, yeah. You guys just did a cover of Ghost of Tom Joad, right?
We did. Yeah, we did that. Yeah, from home, kind of pinging tracks to each other, and yeah, we used to do that in the live set a few times. So it's a big favorite of ours.
Yeah. How was it kind of putting that together, you know, distance like this? Are you guys as a band still distant from each other?
Well, that particular track was quite straightforward, because you just use software on the PC and just ping the tracks to each other. It's yeah, it's kind of needs must in this scenario to keep things ticking along and still be creative in some ways. It's not my favorite method of recording music, because it's a bit soulish. You kind of do, I do the guitar and the vocal, and then I send it to Baron, who puts you know, the other guitar on and some other effects, and it's, yeah, you can get a pretty good end result from it, but it hasn't got that kind of band thing that when you're all together in a room. It's obviously what a lot of people do nowadays, but it's not my favorite way to approach it. But we've also been very fortunate that we've managed to kind of record. We're about 3/4 of the way through our 4th album, as I think I mentioned on correspondence. so we managed to get 2 or 3 sessions in as a full band in the studio before the main lockdown, and we're just going back this weekend actually. So
yeah. And are you recording that one to tape? I think I read that you were with this new album, you're trying to record it to tape, right?
Well, that was initially the intention. The studio's got that capability to be able to do that and then get straight from analog to vinyl. But I think there's a lot more background work involved in doing that. So it looks like we're going to sort of go with the best digital recording that we can and then push it out on vinyl that way. I'd love to put it to tape. I think we all would really, but it's quite an expensive, long process to do that. So yeah, we'll do the best kind of version we can digitally and then release it on vinyl.
Yeah. And are you going with like a mostly acoustic feel with for the album?
I guess it's certainly got that acoustic elements to it, but there's quite a lot of electric guitar on it, as there is on all the albums. But it's very song based, and it's similar to the third one that we did, I think. But it's just, I think the song's a bit more cohesive, and the album's got a particular feel to it. Yeah, there's a little bit of keyboard on there as well, but lots of harmony vocals, and we're almost done with it. So at the minute, I mean, it's shaping up to be the best one, I think. But I think most people say that about the one they're working on.
It's a good place to be at, right? Like, you don't want to say, "Oh, this is the worst," Yeah. Like, let's just put it out anyway.
Yeah, it feels good. It does feel good, and it's the most settled lineup that we've had since we've been together, which is pushing 10 years. So.
Yeah. How did you meet Baron?
Well, it was just a chance encounter, really. I was busy, raising kids and that type of thing, and I was still playing folk music at folk clubs, just solo and doing old covers and that sort of thing. And I saw an advert for a country band to just deputise for them, because I think the front man had some kind of ailment or something, and he was out of action for a while. So I responded to this ad, and they wanted somebody that could do the songs that they were doing in their set, but also bring a dozen or so of their own songs to the gig, because they didn't have enough to fill the set out. Anyway, went down and did the gig, and they were a kind of full-on country band really at that time, and Berrien was part of that band. He just dropped me a line after the fact and said, "Look, if you ever do anything or set anything up, I'd be interested in collaborating with you." And so we did that, and I think we pinched the bass player from that band, because they were almost folding anyway, and sort of built it up from there. And Berrien and I have been mainstays of the band since, and we've had kind of like a revolving roster of players, but we've now got a pretty settled lineup. So
yeah. And you have Marty Williamson in the band, right, who was in Psychedelic Furs and played with Sinead O'Connor?
Yeah, Marty did play with those guys, and he was in the band for kind of probably about a year or so. He did Shrewsbury Folk Festival with us and played those gigs with us. But we're back down to a 4-piece now. So it's 2 guitars and bass and drums. So it's quite a drilled down unit, and then we get keyboards in and extra things in as and when we need them.
Yeah. On your most recent album, you have a violinist, right? You Jennifer Muslim, right?
Yeah. Jennifer put down some tasteful stuff on that album, and we're actually gone out to another fiddle player this time, so we'll have some more fiddle on this one. But yeah, she did a good job. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the idea of kind of bringing violin and fiddle into your music. What is that kind of how does that make it pop for you?
I think it's we've always kind of touched on that Americana sort of country and folk elements to it. So I think just a big influence in the music, and the melodies tend to go in that direction, where it just feels like it sort of cries out for fiddle on kind of half the album, that type of thing. Otherwise, it tends to be what we're trying to do is flesh the songs out a little bit different to how we would live, because you're quite limited when you're in a live format. We typically go out as a 4-piece, and it's very guitar driven in that sense. So I think when we come to record, we like to just embellish that a little bit with some different textures in there. And the fiddle just works. I think it works in the concept of the songs from a lyrical point of view as well. They're very you know, they've got elements of folk music in them, in the sort of feel of the songs lyrically. So I think that fits in with fiddle.
Yeah. You mentioned playing Shrewsbury Folk Festival. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, for us it was quite a big deal. I think the first time we played that was we just did it as a duo. So we went up and played a couple of acoustic sets there. That was good, and it's you get a very attentive audience there. I think it's the biggest folk festival in the UK. I think, could be wrong on that, but I think it's slightly bigger than Cambridge. And you get a real hardcore kind of fan base there that's very attentive, and so you certainly get that platform to put your songs across. And yeah, it's probably a little bit nerve-wracking for us as a band, because we've kind of been on the, you know, on the sort of festival and bar circuit down in the southeast of England. So it was a big event for us. And then when we did it, well, it would have been summer 2019. It was probably the most people we've played to, actually. So yeah, it was good, great experience. Hopefully we can get back there. I don't think it's on this year, like most places. They've knocked that on the head, but hopefully next year we can go back.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the festivals are scheduling them, like being hopeful, and I think they have to, and until it's just like it's not going to happen, right? Because they're going to have to lose the money, right? So
it looks like 2022 before we're going to be playing live in any real kind of. We might do something this year, but I can't see any kind of big festivals.
Yeah. So your first album was Door to Texas. Tell me kind of about the process of going in and creating that.
We'd been kind of playing sort of sets filled with kind of half originals and half covers by that point. We just made a concerted effort. I'd always had songs knocking about, and Baron and I started collaborating and writing together and that type of thing. So we made an effort to go in the studio, book some time, did it pretty quickly, really. Probably a couple of weekends, maybe a week in total when we recorded that album. I still think it stands up pretty well, that one. It's got a particular sound to it. Yeah, only about 4 or 5 musicians on the whole record, and we've had some good feedback about that one. That was the first. I think that certainly established the sound and preferable from my point of view than the second one that we did. I think it was more cohesive.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of it written before you went in? You knew exactly what you wanted to do?
It's very much a kind of first recording for us. So we had a lot of it written. There's a couple of songs that always tend to come right near the end, because I always find if you've got a date, studio time booked in, you tend to kind of just write 1 or 2 right at the death, that usually go on the record, as they did with that one. I don't really think we knew exactly what we were doing, if I'm honest. It was a little bit of trial and error. We worked with a really good studio and good engineer who helped us along, but you learn from each process. You learn from, listen back and think, well, we do that differently this time. And I think that this one that we're doing, because we've had to have a pause in the process because of this lockdown, gives you a good chance to listen to what you're doing and think, well, actually, when we go back and track the remaining tracks, we'll do something slightly different, or we'll do this and we'll do that. And you just learn from each process. I mean, it's for a band that's working in the way that we are, it's the best way of kind of forging some kind of identity, because you can really hone the sound. Whereas live, at the level that we're working at, live is taking things by chance, really, and you're in the lap of the gods regarding things like sound and audience and that type of thing, and set lists are usually curtailed because you're playing a festival length set, so you've got sort of small exposure, whereas with an album you can really kind of put the concept of the band across. And I think that we've managed to establish a particular sound to what we do.
Yeah. So as you're kind of going into your 4th album now, what are some of the things that you learned kind of going through the first 3 albums, that you're like, okay, we don't want to do this, or we want to make sure we have this incorporated into this new album?
I think the biggest thing would be realizing songs and their full potential. I've been I have a constant battle with kind of patience and just wanting to get things finished. As soon as I start them, it's kind of like, let's get this thing finished. And I think in the past, there's probably always a handful of songs on some of the albums that you look back and think, could have done more with that, you know, could have been structured differently, or, you know, like a bridge in there or a middle eight or something to just embellish the song further. And I think this time we've gone about it a lot more patiently. And I think those elements are in there. I don't think we'll look back on this one and think, you know, we should have done X, Y, Z. I think everything will be what we intended, and then it's just sonically how it sounds from that, really getting the best mix that you can and that type of thing. I think before, the first two records are probably more like demos when you look back on them. They're just kind of songs that we had, went in and played them live pretty much, and a few overdubs, and that's what you hear at the end of it. Whereas I think this time it's a little bit more kind of calculated, not in a kind of you know, a premeditated way, but it's just the way it's kind of happened. It's given us more time to think the songs out.
Yeah. And do you produce it yourself, or do you have someone else producing it, that kind of someone whose opinion you respect, to kind of keep you on track?
Last one we did, we had someone come and produce it for us, which was actually Beren's brother, came over from Norway, and he's got a lot of experience in albums and making records, and he gave us a real steer and you know, pulled verses out and decided on different kinds of arrangements and that type of thing. This time we've really produced it ourselves, because the songs are a lot more fleshed out, and we'll give guidance to people that are doing overdubs and that type of thing, and work closely with a sound engineer. But I think because it's quite stripped down stuff, there's not too many kind of fancy effects we're putting in, and so the production values are, yeah, sort of self-evident really in what needs to be on the songs. Yeah.
And you've covered you know, you guys kind of started as a cover band of sorts, right? And
yeah,
and have covered a good amount of songs along the way. What are some of your favorite songs that you've covered?
Well, mentioned one earlier with the Ghosted Tom Joe, but we've also done Jackson Brown's song called oh gosh, what's that song called now? Barricades of Heaven. I was listening just this weekend actually. It's a big favorite of ours, and we do a few. I don't know if you know, familiar with a band called Wilco, Chicago band.
Yeah.
So we've done a few of their tracks. We're big fans of those guys as well. So we've done California Stars, the one they did with Billy Bragg. We've done that quite a lot. That's probably been in the set for the whole decade we've been together, I think, that one. Quite a few Bob Dylan tracks, Neil Young. Yeah, Powderfinger's a big favorite. We used to do Neil Young tracks a lot. You know a guy called A.A. Bondi?
I'm not familiar with that. No.
He's from Alabama. He only records very rarely, but we've done some fairly obscure ones as well. We try to pick ones that are kind of beneath the radar. I mean, I know we did the Johnny Cash one that you saw, Walk the Line as well, but we that's probably about as well known as we get, really.
Yeah.
Fairly obscure.
And what I liked about the Johnny Cash cover, you know, I mean, you don't know it's Johnny Cash at the beginning that you're covering, right? I mean, you bring your own kind of feel to the song that obviously you respect, and you know, and so tell me about that process for you, like kind of when you go in and want to cover a song and you're like, okay, we obviously like this song, we want to, we can resonate with it, but you know, we want to make it our own, in a sense. Like, where do you find that balance, and how do you approach that?
Well, I think it helps the fact that pretty much everyone in the band is self-taught players, so none of us really have ever had, to my knowledge, any kind of lesson or tutoring. So we tend to just play whatever we do purely by ear and by feel, and if it feels right, then we run with that. It's not overly technical what we do, and I think, you know, the Johnny Cash one was an example of, I think Beren he heard somebody that's far further up the greasy pole than we are do like a different cover of that album, or sorry, that song. And he sent it to me and just said, look, this is a good idea for taking a song in a different direction. So I just took it slightly differently, just tuned the guitar down slightly differently, and just almost came up with it kind of instantly, really. And it's just one of those songs that if you feel comfortable singing it and you feel like you can project it, and it's the melody suits you, and the lyrics and that type of thing, you just tend to run with it, really. I mean, there's just no point in doing a cover version exactly like, I mean, even the Tom Joad one is really quite different to how Springsteen does it, you know. And I just feel, what's the point in mimicking, because it's never going to be as good, right, as the guy that wrote it, or if you do it in that way. And it's never going to be as good anyway, really, because that's the whole purpose. Is you've been inspired by something because of that version, so you're always gonna come underneath it, but you want to do it in an interesting way.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, because you see different levels of covers. Like, I mean, a big one was Weezer's cover of Africa, right? And like that, I mean, it sounds exactly like Toto, you know, doing it. So I don't know. It brought that song really back into, you know, pop culture in a sense, but it sounds just like it. And I mean, when I listen to a cover as a music fan, I'm looking for it to be a little bit different, at least, right? And to have a new approach. So I think the way you guys did it is really, really great.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think is it David Bowie one, the wild is the wind. I mean, that something. I don't think that was his song, right? I think that was an old standard, if you like, and. But you just think of it as a David Bowie song now, because it's just so, the way he used to do it, it was so powerful. And I think he did it at Glastonbury a few years ago. And then that's, if you're going to do something, that's, you almost want to be remembered as the definitive version in a lot of ways. And not that, not that our kind of remote overlaid recordings or anything like that. So
right.
I'd qualify that.
Did you get a chance to see Bowie live?
No, I never did. No, unfortunately, I never did. It was a sad day when he passed, and yeah, I mean, I'm sort of, Bowie's similar to Neil Young in my mind, in the sense that it's difficult to kind of love everything that they ever did, because they cover so much ground musically. And I think Bowie particularly, he would do things like drum and bass albums and stuff that I just wasn't into. But then his last one, just before he died, Black Star. Yeah, fantastic, you know.
It is. I mean, it's just an incredible way to go out for him. Also on top, like, it's just like, no, he didn't stop, you know. And you know, it was. Yeah, I never got a chance to see him live either, but I wish I had. And I mean, like after he died, there was a David Bowie celebration here in the Bay Area, led by Gary Oldman, the actor. Actually, who was friends with him. Yeah, and I mean, and there's like 75 musicians. They played like 3 hours of Bowie songs. I mean, you know, tons and tons. Some that were in his band. Some, you know, I mean, some other famous musicians, that sort of thing. And we covered that concert. It was my favorite concert I've ever been to. It was just like really magical. And you know, got to interview Gary Oldman and a bunch of the other, you know, musicians that played, and it was just, I mean, it was just incredible. You know?
Oh, great! Yeah, you're a big fan then.
Yeah, I mean, I became much more of a fan after that show, I'll tell you. You know, I mean, but I really respected his stuff, you know, beforehand. But I mean, and I listened to Black Star a lot around that time. You know, I mean, it's just a piece of art. Not everyone's going to see it that way, right? But but you just like that connection, and the fact that he did that, you know, it just seemed so methodical and, you know, planned, and you know, really, I really respected his approach with that album, you know, going out, you know, right before he did, you know.
Yeah, so. And just did it with some sort of jazz guys close to where he lived, apparently, as well, and all that kind of saxophone running through it, and really, really good.
Yeah,
I could give you like a really early song that we did, which is a Mashville song, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
This one's Fool's Gold. It's probably one of the earliest songs we did on the first record, but I'll give you a couple of verses of that.
Sure.
So I journeyed through the south side, no solution could I find, just cruel concern laying on my mother's mind. I called in a dozen favors down on 12th Street and Vine. If the work dries up, we'll sleep beneath those pines. And I've never been one for revealing, neath my skin it does run cold. And I broke my back 4 years shifting fool's gold. And did I tell you about my dream, Joe? That nothing much did exist, only your brothers and your mother's love, nothing more than this. I called that girl my savior. She said that motherhood, that'll be fine. Then the work picked up, we moved on along the line. And I've never been one for revealing, neath my skin it does run cold. I broke my back for years shifting fool's gold. A lot of empty spaces without the band, you know, but it's just give you a snippet and pretty cheery stuff, eh?
Yeah, no, I actually really like that song, and I was watching the video, live video you did of that song last night, and yeah, I mean, like to what you're mentioning, like Baron backing on, like his guitar, like really makes that song pop too, you know, and yeah. I mean, it was great. I mean, the live video I saw, like, I mean, it was, I don't know if it was just like a little pub or what have you, a lot of people sitting around, but everybody seemed to be really enjoying themselves, you know, while watching you guys play, which is cool.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a nice little gig, and yeah, I think Baron's guitar on that one does really lift the song, and yeah, he's a fundamental part of what we do.
Yeah, it's good to have, you know, good partner like that, right? So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Very cool. Well, Graham, thank you for taking the time again. I appreciate it, and playing some songs, and glad we were able to reach overseas and make this happen. Okay. So that was the interview with Mashville here on Concert Pipeline and Jens. That's going to take us to our next interview we have on the program. We're going to first kind of talk about a show that, you know, I'll say it 1,000 times, was my favorite concert, you know, and where I have the most fond memories. It was just a magical evening. And that was, you know, in March of 2016, where we covered the Celebrating David Bowie show which was Gary Oldman and friends. You weren't there for the interviews, but, and I don't even, this is 5 years ago. I don't think you were hosting the show yet. Maybe you were. I don't know how long you've been doing it. I don't know.
I don't remember. It might have been around. I think, yeah, I don't know actually. Was I hosting them? I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't do that part of the research, but
but I will tell you. Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah. Was Joe with us at that time?
He wasn't at that show, no, but Tony was at that show, our friend Tony, and Marlo, a friend from work, helped me with the interviews that we did. Most of them beginning, you know, before the show, some actually during the show backstage. We had a chance to interview 6 artists, which we'll talk about in this coming interview. But I interviewed Gary Oldman, which was really freaking awesome, just to get 10 minutes with him and talk about Bowie, right. You know, mostly. Yeah. And Joe Sumner, who is Sting's son, and Holly Palmer, who was in David Bowie's band. Jeremy Little, who performed at the show, and Jerry Harrison, who from the Talking Heads, interviewed him, and Scroat, who's
he was the guy that didn't want to talk about the Talking Heads.
Yes, he did not. He shut down a little bit after we started talking about Talking Heads. But I got a few minutes with him, you know, and we talked about Bowie, obviously. So and Scroat was so good. He was so embracing and helpful with helping pull this together and letting us into, you know, this world that he created. He built the set list for that evening. He brought all the performers together, and you remember there's 70 musicians performing it, you know, throughout the evening, which is a 3.5 hour concert.
And you saw it twice in one day, right? Because you were there for the mic check or whatever.
Sound check.
They did the entire show.
Yeah, we came like an hour into the sound check or something, and so we got to see, you know, like while we were doing interviews and everything, we got to see them continuing through the sound check, which isn't, you know, and I talk about this with Scrope, but it wasn't a typical sound check. It was just like a rehearsal of the show that took a brief break while doors were opening and then started over.
And it makes sense. You know, at first I thought it was kind of weird when you were telling me that, but it makes sense because there's so many musicians involved, right? I mean, usually that kind of thing, you know, is reserved for like theater or stage performances. You know, they do these rehearsals instead of sound checks, but it really was a rehearsal. Just to make everybody, you know, to get everybody down on the logistics and stuff.
Everybody was pro though. Everybody knew their stuff and came into it prepared, and really showed great respect for David Bowie, who we had recently lost, and you know, and it was just an incredible evening. That, you know, I mean, just of music, but also where, you know, I became a much bigger fan of Bowie through that evening.
It was definitely magical for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was blown away the whole time just by the sheer number of artists, you know, that came to this and just performed so well, you know. And the venue isn't huge, you know. It's not like this is a you know, basketball, you know, arena or something. This is a little like old time ballroom from way back when, and it was the atmosphere was just electric.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I enjoyed, you know, you were out in the crowd, and you were hanging there for, I think, the whole show, even though we found you a backstage pass. You're like, it's okay. And you know, and then you know, for the last song, which was Under Pressure, like you know, I was like, let's do this right, you know, and it's going to be awesome. And so we had you recording out in the crowd. I was over by the choir standing next to Gary Oldman, actually, and then Marlo was up on the balcony recording. And so I edited the 3-camera shoot together, which you can find on YouTube, of Under Pressure, which was so, I mean, just a great way to end, you know, with Holly Palmer and Joe Sumner leading that song, actually. And you know what, the thing that my takeaway of that moment was being so focused on wanting to do a good job with like videoing the whole thing. Like I kept on talking to myself in my head, like, okay, am I panning enough? Am I zooming in enough or out enough? Is like my part of this video going to be interesting enough? Or by the time it was over, I'm like, shit, can we listen to that song again? I really wasn't able to like completely let it, you know, hit me because I was so focused on the video. You did a great job, and most importantly, you didn't shoot in portrait mode, right? Which is because that would get you an enemy. You know, that is not easy to edit together. You cannot, you know, you cannot do that. So
that would have been the worst. Oh my god, I would have fired myself.
Right. But magical concert. So we're gonna bring Angelo in and relive it some more. And like I said, we're gonna promote this on the Concert Pipeline Facebook page and probably other socials as well. But they're you know, doing a really unique thing and releasing the audio from the show for a 48-hour window on March 27th. So set yourself a reminder, buy a ticket. It's really cheap, and it's a donation that goes to a good cause, worth checking out, you know, and just listening to, and real, you know, going through the whole performance, which is incredible. Just sit down and listen to Bowie for 3.5 freaking hours. Okay, come on. I'll be doing it. Yeah,
we're all stuck at home anyway.
Yeah,
we've got time.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let's bring in Angelo. Thank you, Angelo, for taking the time. Here he is.
Hey, man.
Hey, there we go. How you doing, Angelo?
How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I remember the last time I saw you was backstage by the food.
Yes, I know. And that kind of in between layer at the Regency in San Francisco. I mean, that venue is so, you know, such an interesting venue because it's that where you guys were backstage is, you know, it's also its own venue at certain times also.
Oh, yeah. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool, and you got to like walk through the kitchen to get there or something.
Yeah,
right? So
I remember being really busy and saying to go down there, and by the time I got down there, all the ton of food was gone.
Oh, you missed all the good stuff, huh?
Yeah. There were so many people involved, you know, it was kind of crazy.
Oh, I can only imagine for you, because you're coordinating this whole thing, you know, and you have like 70 performers that you have to keep track of. So your time is really
it was kind
split.
of crazy.
So.
We got in I can't remember if we got in the night before, must have got in the night before, and I can't remember. No, maybe it was the day of we flew up. I can't tell. And we had people flying in, driving in, training in from all directions, and keeping on track of that. And then our only rehearsal with Bay Area people was a sound check.
Yeah,
so run that with, you know, and so.
And that was part of what made that show really so magical for me, because, you know, I came in and started, you know, doing interviews and everything. And that afternoon when the sound check was going on, right? Like, but this isn't like any sound check you ever had. It was really just like kind of a run through, which bled into kind of the actual show. So for me, it was like 5 hours of Bowie, you know, which was so incredible.
Was probably 3 hours or so. Mm-hmm. I think I had like 30 minutes between sound check and the door.
Yeah.
The show went for 3.5 hours with hardly any stopping in between songs. You know, I try to keep it, but you know, in those days, I was doing shows like that, and I was intentionally like, there's this weird balance of trying to find a space where the energy is created because it's moving so fast and intensely and large. You don't have time to overthink. I usually think it all out like 2-3 months ahead of time, and then I didn't have that much time on that one, but and then set it up so everything's there so people can kind of crush in, and the train stays on the tracks, even though it's crazy. You know,
and you're kind of counting on everybody to be professional, really, right? And know their pieces. And
so the contact charts are out ahead of time, recordings, parts are delineated. The stage flow is set up for things to move and not be caught up with changing things. So it's all specifically designed to work that way, like just, you know.
Yeah. And I remember the big master set list on the backstage wall right next to the stage entrance, where all the artists would just check, you know, what the order of the songs and everything.
And had those plates all over the venue, so everybody came on track. And to this day, and you know, this show, that show was really, I've been telling people, the springboard for moving forward, because we did the Roxy show, and that was such an emotional release about David passing. It was only a month after, and everybody was super raw and everything, and came together really fast. That went viral, and then we had the offer to come up there, and I thought, since I used to live there and play there, I could merge the two cities, and with that, it became a little bit more intentional show. And so after that, I mixed the show really quick, thinking, you know, that was a lot of magic there. And I don't know what's going to happen. We were getting offers all over the world, but there wasn't a big plan. And so I thought, let me just hunker down for 3 weeks and work nothing on this thing. Because, you know, I already produce and mix records, and it's so complex with the songs and the players. I'm like, nobody's going to want to touch this. I have to do it, because I'm the one who knows who everyone is and where they're going and their entrance, and I can kind of corral it. And then once I did that, that was a thing where when the idea of an international tour came up, people said, well, what are you talking about? What kind of thing? I fed out these demos, these rough mixes. And that's what got us international, was this show. The recording of that drew in promoters, other artists. It was from this show. And then I didn't know. Then it's just been sitting around. Then it just came up to, hey, what can we do with this? And then now, since we had the idea of the 5-year anniversary stream, I thought, man, those tracks are great. Let me check it out. So I went back in, and like I am now, and revisiting the mix, making sure it's kind of a public release kind of thing, and balancing things, and kind of a fresh ear on it. And boy, it's blowing my head off.
Yeah, I mean, it was a masterful show, and a lot to come together to make it happen. I mean, and it was sold as Gary Oldman and Friends, right? And,
yeah.
And so, how did Gary Oldman get involved with that? I know he was friends with Bowie.
Yeah. Gary's was friends with David, and Gary had been playing on my shows for like 3 years. We'd been doing different artists covering. Same kind of show, like long shows with dozens of musicians rotating off stage, real dramatic performances. Then when Bowie passed, I called him up. Immediately, people are contacting me to think about doing a show of the style we'd been doing. And I was reluctant. For one, I was kind of crushed.
Yeah.
And that's directly in my community, my peers and stuff. So I had to process that for a week. So I sat on it for a week and thought about it. Then I started slowly calling people within our kind of circles that work with a lot. Tim Lefebvre, who played on Black Star. We were playing together the night when it was announced that Bowie passed away. We were actually on stage. We heard together with the drummer from Black Star in the audience. So we kind of heard together. And so I called him first. And he said he was fully on board. I probably asked Holly Palmer. I've played with a lot who played with Bowie. And then making the rounds, then I asked Gary, and then immediately said, well, we were close friends. And I said, oh, boy, I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. Let's do something down the line. And he immediately jumped in, no, I want to be on board. And I said, okay, and so then I realized, oh, what am I thinking? Why didn't I recognize that those guys are a perfect pair? And yeah, and Gary's a sweetheart guy, and yeah, he was on board. I said, let's put our names out front on this and try to get some people out for San Francisco. And he brought a film crew, and then brought in the audio team to record it, and that's what we're working with.
Yeah. And I mean, it was just this great collection of, like you said, some members who were in his band, everybody obviously who's a fan of, Bowie's music as well. And as you're kind of building this set list, like, was it you that kind of made the set list, or did the people? Okay,
I fully think it out, like I say 2-3 months in advance usually. On this one, I just had 6 weeks, but whatever. It's like, we'll go for it. And no, I think I had the whole set list, and then I cast particular players for the set list, the flow. And then I'm also very conscious of how things are coming and going off stage. So that's framing that and making those decisions all ahead of time. I do that stuff pretty much before I call everybody. So I'm kind of done the show before I'll call 2 or 3 people like Tim Lefebvre and Gary that I know will help me anchor the show musically. And like, okay, I've got that small core, but it's really 2 or 3 people. Then from there, I plan out the whole thing. I think about how it's going to be presented, how the songs, what kind of order, the stage flow, the stage plot, key members on certain songs and how they're going to come and go. And I do all that before I start making calls.
Yeah. And I mean, the show ended with Under Pressure, of course, and with Holly Palmer and Joe Sumner. I mean, was that your plan all along to have them, them?
Yeah, Joe and I, I played with Holly for a number of years, and we've done a bunch together, and I love her singing and her presence, and she's so heartful in this project and in music. She's fantastic. And Joe and I, he's been on shows for a while, and we're working on an original album at that time, which has since come out. And I just like the way those two paired up on different things we'd done before. Yeah. And I wanted to, then I brought the gospel choir in. I've had the orchestra strings for early in the day. And that was part of the planning. I had the orchestra strings on a certain amount of songs, like the first 12 or so, they leave and the choir takes a spot.
Yeah.
So it's a real fast changeover for a lot of people and everything. But, I wanted to end something big, and I wanted to build it up as big, blow the roof off as possible, right to the last dynamic, then just stop and let the air, the dust settle before a little tag at the finish the night, make it as dramatic and everything as possible, But I like that, that was only 2 months, a little over 2 months since David had passed. So everybody was still in that emotional zone about it. And what was fun bringing SF and LA scenes together was a certain amount of people knew each other, but had seen each other a while from tours and recording. So there's a reunion factor about it, behind the stage and on stage, and people who had never played together before, or people who had never met but heard of each other. So there's real community coming together thing. And to me, that's the energy and the motion that drove that show and that performance. And the crowd just latched on and became part of it,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really kind of incredible.
Yeah. And another big get for you, Jerry Harrison come as well.
Yeah. I've worked with Jerry since then as well. And I just heard Jerry about releasing the stream. He thought it was great and congratulated on getting it out there. He loved the show, had a great time. And same with Gary. Gary's throwing it up. And Gary's in London right now on a shoot, but he got right back and said, whatever you need to do, use whatever, do it. And they're promoting it through their avenues. So it's a real good sense that everybody's kind of back on board and go, wow, okay, that was 5 years ago. Oh yeah. And getting the feeling of it, and, the experience is kind of fun. And fun. It's really great. We have limitations on through the estate. After this show, I came up with the idea of traveling internationally and connecting the towns that Bowie's most known for being influenced by and influencing back. Sydney Opera House, Sydney, LA, New York, Japan, Tokyo, and the UK. So before I started that, I didn't feel comfortable with that reaching out to the estate, who had heard about our first two shows and were pleased with them. And so I told them what I'd like to do. And they said, yeah, that's great. We're not, we can't endorse anything officially, but go ahead, and you have to be careful about a few things, rights issues. So we can't really film and release a show for rebroadcast at this point. And we have to be careful about images and stuff like that. But we've always been really respectful and coexisted, and always kind of, I run anything by them usually, like everything before there's a big move. Because at the end of it, we're not trying to take over anything or be Bowie. We just love Bowie and his music. So
yeah, good to have them on your side, right? So
yeah, it'd be bad, I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it.
right.
It's not. I have no personal agenda. I'm just having fun out of love for the music and stuff. So, and after this show, Adrian Blues, one of my big heroes, came on board. Has been staunch supporter and in all the way ever since. So, it's really cool. We do have Gary's footage from backstage, some travel rehearsal. We're going to put that on the Facebook event page. So we can share that stuff and just different little things along the way that kind of happened before the show. We can share that on social media and have fun with that. So, and a matter of fact, if you have our interviews, the interviews you did archived, I'd love to get those and share those with people as well.
Yeah. We don't have video of the interviews, right? But
that's okay.
Yeah, but we have the podcast interviews. We interviewed you, Gary, Jerry, Holly, Joe, and wait, I said Jerry.
Right, Angelo.
And Jerry. No, we didn't get into it. But Jeremy Little.
Okay, cool.
So we were able to get 6 interviews that night, and
great.
And yeah, it was just a great array of of players, and all just really centered around how amazing Bowie is, and just like a mad respect for his work, right? And what they were able to do. And then we were able to shoot under pressure with 3 cameras spread throughout the venue as well, which one from the crowd, one up on the balcony, and then one.
Have I seen that? I'd love to see that stuff.
I think you have, but I'll shoot you the link.
Cool.
So you have it. It's up on YouTube, but I'll make sure you have it. And so that was, it was just magical. Angelo. It was incredible, and I want to thank you for putting it on and continuing. What a cool experience to be able to continue and bring that around the world, and celebrate Bowie's music.
It's been really crazy, and you see constantly it's consistent, that love and everything that's there. And if when you do it big and do it right and do it with a passion, it's kind of a different thing. It is magic to it. You gotta kind of kick out egos and big agendas and everything. And that's been a chore. As it grew, we had so many people on. They're like, okay, come on, settle down.
Yeah.
It was in 2017 and 2018, it was an explosion of insanity. But that was then, and it was kind of cool with the one positive pandemic is kind of, we were just about to announce 50 shows worldwide, and they all got shut down. I went to focusing back on the records, my own records and stuff like that. But coming out of this year, it was like, well, let's take a look back for a second. It might be a while before we're out there touring still. Let's kind of revisit these old shows. They were incredible. We've been going so hard and fast. We just haven't really looked back in that way,
Yeah. What would you say you're most proud of from this whole experience of pulling this together?
Well, for me personally, it's kind of funny. There's so much that's gone on all over the place, but there's 3 things that personally to me. The first show at the Roxy. I haven't played a show like that ever. I don't think I ever will again. The power of the emotion that went through every cell in the room was amazing. This show, and then getting to play the song "Stay" with Adrian Belew. That was it for me.
Did it, right? That made it all worthwhile, right?
Yeah, that was kind of when that started happening. I was like, okay, that's it for me. in Bowie,
I could pack it up and
yeah, that Bowie world, that's as good as it gets for me. So,
yeah.
but now it's taken on a kind of a new phase coming up, and that's looking back, it's a good thing about that, to set that off, remembering like the shows, these first two shows that hooked it up, and that magic, and make sure that's still there, and engineer shows. I'm kind of a special event person, so even when touring, I kind of want to make it something a little different, something a little special somehow, you know. So what's good is we have some things are starting to kick up now, with vaccinations coming around, everything. There's some really, really interesting prospects ahead that got me fired up again.
Hey, getting rejuvenated.
I'm thinking of new ways to present this material that are big, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And as you're planning the world tour, which will happen, who knows when, but it will happen, you know. Is SF on the list of places you're going to come back to?
Yeah, man, I've been trying to get back up there with this. I want to bring Adrian there.
Yeah.
And you know, also I'm proud of introducing Adrian, Blue, and Angelo more.
Yeah.
Because those guys are hilarious on their own and crazy talented in multiple ways, and they've never met before, and they love each other. It's such a funny pairing, but it's kind of perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of that, making that connection. And I want to get those guys back up there. We just shows with Todd Rundgren. I want to bring Todd in to SF. I just want to, you know, I want to, when we do that, I want to come back and do the kind of show that was at the Regency before, with some new faces and stuff, and blow it out again, you know.
Yeah. Well, when you come back, I will absolutely be there. I think you know that. So
yeah, you got to be there.
Yeah, as I told you, I mean, it's just, I mean, hands down, like I've been to a lot of concerts, but that concert is, but my remarkably my favorite, right? I mean, there's just so many pieces that.
Well, that makes me really proud.
Yeah, you did a lot of great work, and I know for it all to land on one person's shoulders, that feeling of afterwards, you know, like sigh of relief, you did it, it pulled off, and you absolutely pulled it off, and you know, just another pat on the back for a job well done, and you know,
so much fun, and hopefully, and we're getting great response coming in real quick to hear this. It's funny that it's audio only. I thought, what does it matter? I mean, it's kind of better because you're just hearing it and in the moment. And hopefully we'll get the same reaction from the recording, you know, around the planet. It's funny, one thing I was going to say, I realized looking back, we only go up to, we kind of went chronological up to Under Pressure. After that show, it went even all the way. I mean, we did Slip Away with orchestra and choir in Iceland. It was just, you know, we did Black Star with 24-piece ensemble with Sting. I mean,
wow,
we've gone the whole catalog ever since then. So, but that's great looking back at that and seeing, oh, we only went Under Pressure. Then next time we're in, we got room to fill out.
Yeah, I know. I saw some of the video of Sting doing Black Star, and it was just incredible. So bring him back when you come, you know, to San Francisco, okay?
He's hard to wrangle, but
I imagine.
He's quite the score. Super nice guy, crazy talented. I mean, yeah, he's so great, and we keep in touch. So that's been a great thing as well out of this. You know?
Yeah, you played a lot of shows with him, right? So.
No, we just did 2 shows here in LA.
Okay. I mean, you've played with other shows with him. I mean, outside of celebrating David Bowie, right?
No,
unless I'm wrong. Okay.
Just those. There was talk. This is funny. Nobody really does this, but I got asked to produce a Burt Bacharach track, and I was bringing Sting on, and we were going to do that at Abbey Road. It was one of the things we were talking about. And at the last minute, we were all in talks, so all was moving forward at the last minute. Sting's schedule. He had to hit a record, as he tends to do, and we couldn't find time. You know, I did hang out with him in Paris and tried to hang out with him in South America, but you know, that's just one of the things. They're moving so fast. I can't remember where we were. I think it's Buenos Aires. We're same side of town. I reached out. It's like, yeah, come on over. And then by the time we got to it, it's like, I can't get over there.
Gotta go.
It's like, oh, almost. I can't risk it with the traffic, you know.
Yeah.
But we've stayed in touch. He's funny.
Yeah.
People I realize he's kind of like Bowie's reputation in a way, shooting back funny emails and all that, lighthearted, sweet guy.
I've heard some of Bowie's emails, like his emails to Dave Grohl, you know, or what have you, like that sort of thing. So they're pretty infamous. So yeah,
it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Angelo, thank you for taking the time. And like I said, I'm going to be tuning into the stream and look forward to it, and we'll push it out as well, and make sure it gets some good press out there, because it's an amazing show that's worth checking out. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so great to reconnect, because I remember you vividly as part of the scene.
I'm so good. I love that. I love that, because I felt like that, you know, and that was so awesome to just, you know, again, I've interviewed hundreds of bands, but just to be included in that scene, it's something that's indescribable, you know. I mean, just to have been a part of that for one night, you know, and be able to say that, you know, I was there in that capacity. So thank you so much.
We'll do it again.
That was the interview with Angelo Bundini here on Concert Pipeline, and thank you to Angelo, as well as to Mashville for being on the program. And that's our show. I'm going to tell you who we have on the show next weekend. We have an interview with a band called the Shootouts.
Shootouts.
Yes.
Nice.
And I got a chance to talk to their lead singer, Ryan Humbert, about all things with their band. We'll leave it for next week. Exciting stuff to come from the Shootouts. So for all of us here at Concert Pipeline, that's Jim Schipple.
And that is Steve Jones.
We'll catch you next time.